everyone, even to those that are not faithful members to the class of the 6th grade life. I do want to welcome you guys, but a huge shout out to my 6th graders. This video is for you. I'm keeping up this content with my 26 million subscribers that are increasing day by day, I'm sure. I just haven't checked. But thank you guys for being faithful, loyal subscribers, and I want to thank the substitute as well for their help making this video possible. But I would like everyone to open their books on page 182. Follow along with me. Page 182. Also take out your notes as well. Please follow along in your notes. I've put up a brand new slide. And we're going to be on page 182. Now what you'll notice on this slide is it starts at the very top of page 182, talking about Clara Barton. But let's look at the bottom of the first column, where you see the title of the first column says, "The Gospel Continues to Spread." And I want to emphasize that during the Civil War, the gospel is going to spread in both the North and the South. It's amazing once you get in wartime how much people wake up to the gospel. And I believe a lot of it is because it gets so real. Death becomes so real. And at this point, we've seen about 600,000 Americans lose their lives. It's a lot of Americans. In fact, there's some stat, I don't have it with me, but it's some stat that says we've lost more Americans in World War I, World War II combined. We've lost more in the Civil War than those were combined, which blows your mind. But the gospel is going to spread, and people are going to wake up to the gospel. And in both the North and the South, there's going to be revivals. Now, we're talking about post-war or after the war, but a lot of this has to do with in the war, too. We're kind of looking at some highlights of life beyond the war. Because if we're not careful, we think the whole entire United States is involved in the war. Literally everyone is fighting. That's not true. So there's going to be daily life, but it's going to look a little different because they're in a war. So one, the gospel is going to spread. But look on page 182. You see a picture of a young lady. Her name is Clara Barton. Notice in the notes, Clara Barton is from Massachusetts, MA. So she's northern. She's a Union nurse. Now, what happened? She was a nurse, and she saw the need of going to the battlefield to take care of these soldiers, these wounded. So she's going to go, she's going to do everything she possibly can, and a lot of nurses are going to follow her as well. She's going to kind of take the lead of the northern battlefields, and she's going to earn a very prestigious title amongst the troop. In fact, Abraham Lincoln's going to call her after the war and say, "Hey, could you set up something like this for the future?" Well, the soldiers are going to love her because without her, they would suffer and many would have died. So she was very well respected amongst the soldiers. But I want you to know her nickname, Angel of the Battlefield. That you think of battlefield, you just think of everything horrific, everything is gory and mean and awful. But yet, Clara Barton stands out as the angel of the battlefield, doing good, helping others. So that's Clara Barton. Now, cool story is she actually gets to go overseas. She gets to go over to Europe, and there was a major conflict over there between France and Prussia, which is pretty much Germany. It was a lot more than Germany, but France against Prussia. And she's going to go over, she's going to help, but she's going to see that the Europeans have kind of advanced more than the United States had in what's called the Red Cross. So the Red Cross had already been established over in Europe. She did not invent the Red Cross, but she saw it in Europe, and she said, you know what, that's what we need in America. So she coordinates with the Red Cross over in Europe, and she comes back to America and starts the American Red Cross. You want to know that? You see that at the bottom of 182. Notice that's in 1881, so that's way past the Civil War, about almost 20 years past the Civil War. But she is able to start the American branch of the American Red Cross. So she does tremendous work in the medical field, but there was more life going on than just the war. Like we said, Claire Barton is kind of a outside light, but she was still very involved in the war. This next point, the Pony Express, kind of had to do with the war, but then again, it didn't. In fact, let's look at the Pony Express on page 182. I do want you to know where it started. It will go all the way from Missouri all the way out to Sacramento, California. And notice when it started. I want you to look at the year. It said the Pony Express opened in... Okay, hopefully you're not screaming. Please don't scream. But it says 1860. In the year 1860. And when did the Civil War start? I wish I could do popcorn, but I can't, because I can't see or hear you. I know it may seem like I can see and hear, but I can't. Shocking. But if we were to do popcorn, I would say go right now. But if no, we won't do popcorn. Have a seat. But the year is 1860. The year is 1860. So before the Civil War starts, literally right before the Civil War starts, we have this new mail system because we have these states out west, like California and Oregon. So how do we get communication and mail to them? Well, the best thing that they can think of is have this guy just ride straight out to them. Now, that's a long ride from Missouri to California. In fact, if you look in your books, turn back to page 379. On page 379, I'm sorry, not 379. I was looking at the wrong page. Look in the back. It's on page 346 and 347. You can see Missouri. So look at Missouri. Look at Jefferson City right in the middle. But then look all the way out to Sacramento, California. That's a long distance. So what would they do? They would have stations along the way through Kansas, Colorado, Utah, Nevada, and California. They would have these stations, and they'd just be stables in these small towns. And what these, go ahead and turn back to page 182 now. What these riders would do is they would ride from station to station. So let's say I'm a writer, and I've been given the task to take this bundle of mail out. Now look on page 183. You can see me on the horse. It's not a picture of me, but you can see me on the horse, and I'm riding along. Notice it's just me and the horse, and you see some random guys there because they're actually setting up the telegraph, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. But it's just you and the horse. Now, sometimes you may run into wild animals or Indians, or your horse could run out, break a leg, something to where it's just you. So it was extremely dangerous. In fact, they asked for young people, about around the age of 16, and there was an ad that said orphans preferred. Now that sounds really harsh, but why would they say something like that? Because it was extremely dangerous for them to do. Now, it wasn't just orphans, but it was a job that would help those people that needed jobs. So I'm on my way to deliver mail out to California, and I'm riding along, and then I'm only going to ride about maybe 20 miles, because then my horse is going to get tired. Now, I'm going to ride the horse as fast as possible. So I'm going to ride the horse as long as he possibly can go. So about 20 miles or so. And then there's a station. I'm going to get off the horse. I'm going to move my stuff to the next horse. And then I take off on a brand new horse. My horse I had just left back at that stable. And I'm going to take off another 20 miles. And as fast as I can until that horse gets tired. Then that's where I get to another station. And then I take my stuff off, put it on a brand new horse. That horse stays behind, rests, and then I'm going to take off again. So this rider will jump from horse to horse. He is constantly going the entire time, but the horses are changing as he goes. Now notice how long it lasts. It only lasts for, 19 months. No, you're like doing the math. How many years is that? Well, 12 months is a year. So it's a year and 7 months. Almost a little longer than a year and a half. That's about all it lasts. Why? Look on page 183. It's because of a new invention called the telegraph. And if you know anyone who, the person that invented the telegraph, you would say it's Samuel Morse, and that's where we get the Morse code. But what they're doing on page 183 is setting up the telegraph wires. And that is sending these messages through the wires, and now we no longer need this long mail system. I'm sorry, I told you long. It was about 15 to 20 miles that they would ride per day, or per horse. But like I said, the problem was it was very expensive and it was very dangerous. But it does not last very long. So the Pony Express system, kind of very ironic, although it only lasts for a little bit. One, because the telegraph system begins, and two, we begin creating railroads. In fact, after the war, we see, notice it's 1869, that this Transcontinental Railroad is complete. Transcontinental. Trans means across continent, across the continent. So we had already had railroads all through the north and the south where we're living, but we have this Midwest where Lewis and Clark is forward, but no one's really living. So we need to get those railroads connected with California. So there's going to be a company that starts in Omaha, Nebraska. That company is called the Union Pacific Company. Now, we're going to invite a lot of immigrants that just come in looking for jobs. So we're going to encourage them to go out and work on the railroad. So most of them are Irish because think of Ireland is over by England. They're going to cross over to the across the Atlantic Ocean, and they're going to be looking for work. So the best work they have is Nebraska. So most of the men in the Union Pacific are going to be Irish. Now, in California, they're going to start building toward the New England or the Nebraska people. Have you ever seen that picture of the bridge where they were trying to build from both sides, but they did not connect? Awkward. Someone didn't plan it right. Well, that's the idea here. Now, they are going to connect, but you're going to have one team, the Union Pacific, coming out of Nebraska. You have another team from California, the Central Pacific, that are going to work toward Nebraska. Now, most of these are going to be Chinese immigrants. They're going to cross the Pacific Ocean, and they're going to look for work. So the best work that they can find is on the railroad. So they're going to work toward each other, and they finally meet May 10th. By the way, that's pretty close. That's not next week, but the week after. May 10th, 1869 is that date where the two railroads come to meet. And they meet at the town called Promontory Point, Utah. Now, if you look at a map, it looks like the Nebraska team made more work. It's because in California, they were crossing the mountains, so it's much more difficult. But they meet at Promontory Point, Utah. That's very important. And there was this big ceremony. On page 183, you can actually see the picture. This is a real picture of what took place. You can see the two trains, because what they'll do is they'll carry their supplies on the trains, and they'll move down the tracks as they build them. So you have the two trains, you have the two companies there that have met, and they have this golden spike that the leaders of both companies are going to, one's going to hit it, then the next one's going to hit it. It's just this big ceremony of driving the last spike in the railroad. It was a golden spike. You can go out there and see it today. It was just painted over gold. It wasn't actually a solid gold spike. But that's going to be the last piece to the track. And then the continent is connected, which is going to greatly change our travel time. And people can go back and forth as they please, mainly for visits, but also, more importantly, for businesses. So this is going to greatly increase the United States wealth. Now, that is all we have time for today. But what I'd like you to do for homework is to read page 184 to page 186. Remember, anytime we have reading, you know what is possible. So again, your homework is 184 to 186. You're going to read about two gentlemen that greatly changed the South and helped to rebuild the South. So that is your homework. I'm sorry I could not be there with you guys today, but I'm with you guys in spirit. I do want to thank the subs for subbing for me. I appreciate it. And I will see you guys tomorrow. I will be back in class, so make sure you guys have those read. I will see you all tomorrow.